Wallach. We're here each and every day at 8 a.m. for your viewing and listening pleasure. And it's a joy with you to be with you today, as it is every day, because I get to share, I get to explore, I get to question, and I hope you enjoy that. I hope you enjoy questioning, because questioning is the key to life. Here's what I teach. Question everything. Don't believe anything. It may have been true yesterday. Question it again today. Why? Because your perspective changes each and every day. Do you get that? Your perspective is constantly changing. Ergo, how you see the world is constantly changing. So how you saw it yesterday, you'll see it differently today. And so that's something that's not easy to ponder, because it's not something we've been taught, is it? Not at all. And so one of the things that comes to me is this, and I put that in there: can the ego experience love? I believe it's only when we surrender the ego that we can have the experience of love. And you say, well, Lee, I don't get that. What do you mean by that? Well, let me give you my ideas on that. So think about this. Ego is a judgmental part of our mind, is it not? And as a judgmental part of our mind, it is looking for a one-sided situation. All pleasure. That's what it's normally seeking, all pleasure. Or if pain is satisfying aspects of it, it's seeking more of that. I know that's hard to believe, but that's true. So if you think about that, the ego is always seeking one side of life. It can never experience love. Because love is not about a one-sided life. Love is about that space in between the contrast. It is between the yin and the yang. It's between the inhale and the exhale. It's between this thought and that thought. It's that gap where there is nothing, where there is everything. So love is not something that you can articulate. Love must be experienced. And here's the key thing about the experience of love. There are zero words that can describe it. How do you describe nothing? And how do you describe everything? I've not figured that out yet. Now, people say, well, I've had this experience. Well, then I ask the question, was it a sensory experience? What is a lustful experience? Was it the ego desiring to have that experience? What was that experience? And I know we're going really deep, but that's the purpose. Why would we waste our time going shallow when we have the ability to go deep? I love going deep. I absolutely love going deep. Now, do I get answers going deep? No, but I get ideas and questions. Here's what I've had to resolve myself. Here's what the ego wants to do. The ego wants to get to the end. It wants an end result. And guess what? In life, there is no end result. There's the moment. Where does the ego live? The ego lives in the past, trying to create and control a future. Do you get that? The ego lives in the past and is trying to create and control the future. But that's not where love is. Love is in the now. And the ego can't be in the now because it's always got to bring the past forward. So if you're in a relationship and you're constantly comparing your partner to something in the past, or you're bringing in all the baggage from the past into the current relationship, remember this: you're not in love. You're trying to fulfill the needs of the ego. I know that sucks, doesn't it? Yeah, I know. It's for me too. There are times I go there. Just part of where I am. I go there. The ego doesn't like to be put aside. But in order to put it aside, we have to surrender into an experience. When I talk about surrender into an experience, I mean being fully present with the experience, actually becoming the experience, becoming the conversation. In meditation, it's becoming the breath. in making love. It's becoming the very act of love. It's that point of freedom. It's a point of creativity. It's a point of expression. That's what the ego is. Not. The ego is not that. The ego is, I want this, and then I want more, and I want more, and I want more. When you are in the now, there is no further desire. Do you get that? In the now, there is no further desire. And that's a hard thing for the ego to even comprehend. It's a hard thing for you and I to begin to even talk about. Why? Because most of the time when we're talking, our ego's in full control. And what does the ego love to do in relationship, gang? It loves to be right. There is nothing greater that the ego loves than to be right. And so I always say to people when I'm talking about relationships and I'm teaching relationships or I'm counseling relationship, would you rather be happy or would you rather be right? Good question, isn't it? Sometimes, guess what? I'd rather be right. And later on, I find out, ooh, I'm not happy with that choice. It's not that I'm being punished. It's that what you put out comes back. It's a law. It's a law of cause and effect. What you put out comes back. It doesn't discern who you are, where you are, what you're doing. What you put out comes back. When you understand that law and you watch how that law works in your life, you may try to start using that law to your advantage instead of trying to fight it. We try to fight this law all the time. Guess what? You can't fight the law. What was that song? It was by the Bobby Fuller Four. I fought the law and the law won. You can't beat the law. The law is universal. It is everywhere present. It is always working. It is always returning exactly who you are. Always returning exactly who you are. So you want to know what you are? Look at what's showing up in your life. That's the summation of your belief structure. That's the summation of the energy that you're putting out. Want something different? Change your energy. Change your thought process. Change your beliefs. All the great teachers have taught that. All the great teachers have taught that. They talk about surrender. They're surrendering to the ego. They're surrendering the ego so that they can experience love and be fully engaged in life. Not one side of life, but in all of life. It's fascinating to see that. And more importantly, it's fascinating to experience it. This is the key thing. Everyone's out there saying, you got to get this, you got to get that, you got to do this, you got to do that. When was the last time you just sat with someone with no intention? We're fully present with them. Here's the best way to do that. Sit with your dog if you've got a dog. If you don't have a dog, go get the neighbor's dog and just have that dog right next to you and just rub. Just stroke the dog. Scratch the dog a little bit. Not for the purpose of making the dog happy, not for the purpose of you making happy. Just surrender into the actual experience of it. And when you surrender into the actual experience of it, guess what? You become light. You become light. Your body becomes light. Your mind becomes light. When the ego's involved, we feel heavy, physically, emotionally, and mentally heavy. But when we're in a state of love or we're not in ego and we're seeing the beauty of every moment, this moment is so beautiful, our bodies are really light. It's like we're floating. And I know you've experienced it. I know you've been there. And I know each of you has that experience in you. The question is, do you want to have that experience again? If you do, surrender the ego and be in the now, be in love. Even if you're by yourself, surrender to you. Just simply start focusing on your breath and surrender into becoming the very breath moving in and out. Notice the inhale. Notice the exhale. But try to notice that space in between. That's the divine. That's where there's no contrast. That's where there's no ego. The ego wants to breathe deeper than anybody else. You ever hear that one? I know, I'm doing Wim Hof. I want to get up to 4 minutes by the end of the year. I want to be able to hold my breath for 4 minutes. I'm up to over 2.5. That's the ego. Love says, just be whatever the breath gives you in the moment. Don't try to extend it into the future. Just be with what the breath gives you in the moment. That's love. That's a great exercise to practice today. Take some real deep breaths and then exhale, then hold your breath and just be with that hold as long as you can, without struggling, without fighting it, without trying to beat anyone, without putting yourself down. Just be in the process. So the whole point today was to talk about the idea that in the ego, we cannot experience true love. We have to surrender the ego and know that the ego, when we're attached to things, which is the ego, we feel very, very heavy. So if you feel a heaviness in your body, a heaviness in your mind, a heaviness in your emotion, realize it's your ego taking control, wanting you to do things, saying it's not enough. You have an unrealistic expectations, really what's happening. So with that in mind, every day this month of February, we're talking about love. And today was day 2. If you missed day 1, it's back on YouTube. You can go watch it or go on Facebook and go to my page. Hey, if you like this, if this really resonated with you, do me a favor and share it. Better yet, go to my website, agapespiritualcenter.com, and sign up for my newsletter or subscribe to my YouTube channel. If I'm giving and you're receiving, then the natural thing is for you to give and for me to receive. That's love. So if no one tells you this today, I will. I love you and I accept you just the way you are. Have a great day, everybody. Aloha.